slap at the base.
There you go. Well, hey, we are glad that you're here today with us, and uh, it's a triple play. This is our kind of first of the new year, 2023, right?
This is the first, yeah, first of the year, second all time.
Second all time. That's right. Well, let's jump into it. We got three headlines today in sports. Number one, which I think we got to lead off with this video here because this was quite the play, and so hold on here.
Oh yeah.
And it is DeMar Hamlin. Everybody's talking about it. This guy,
That's
just an incredible athlete, and
not what
took
any
a
of us
hit,
want to see, and everybody's
gets up,
around him, and
we're just
hope
not
that he's
sure
going to be okay.
what all happened there.
So we'll take another break
Shoulder
here
and
in
helmet to the
Cincinnati.
chest. But I'm sure that's not the first time he's been hit in the chest before.
No. He but I mean, it's something to think about, right? I mean, you never want to see an athlete get hurt. He was a second-year guy with the Buffalo Bills. Bills have been having a solid season, and as of right now, they say that he's improving in his health, that he's doing better. But they're also saying that he's still in ICU, so it's not over yet.
He can't breathe on his own.
No, he can't. I don't think so.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, at least right now they've got him under. They said they've got him under. He is getting oxygen, the last I heard. So, but that might just be also because he's under. But that being said, I mean, you never want to see an athlete get hurt.
No.
And you dealt with that. I mean, as a player, on the baseball field, obviously you saw any injuries. Did you see anything that was kind of gruesome in your time out there?
Not really gruesome. Some shocking visuals, like when Chase Utley slid into second when we were playing the Mets one year, and that guy got hurt. I forget his name. Anyways, he broke his leg, but just like the flip and everything and full speed, you're like, whoa!
Yeah.
But it's not like gruesome. The most scared I've ever been on the field when I was first signed out of high school. We were in the Gulf Coast League, and there was a right fielder, Dominican player, and it was probably 100 and I don't even know what 105 out. Just rained, so it was super humid. Playing in the middle of the day. I don't know why they used to do that. I think they switched to morning games now, but like back when they didn't care about anybody, players or anything, we used to have us play at 1 o'clock in Florida. In the heat, like after full morning workouts, go and play.
And that humidity.
And the humidity. And
oh
so
my goodness.
it was like, I don't remember, it was like the fourth inning or something. There's a fly ball, and the right fielder, Dominican guy, came and ran in and just stopped. And like stopped for like a second and just stood there. And then like just flopped on the ground and started seizing up.
Oh wow!
And it was a full body cramp. That's all it was.
Wow!
His whole body just shut down because he was dehydrated.
I think as a fan, the scariest thing I've ever seen at a ball game, and no, it wasn't Fredbird, but
San Diego Chicken.
The Philly Fanatic, right? So no, the scariest thing I ever saw was the Cardinals had an outfielder who was on the on deck circle in Encarnacion, and there was a foul ball and it hit him in the eye, and he never saw again.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he lost vision in that eye.
Stuff like
that was early 2000s, like mid 2000s.
It's fresh on everybody's mind, but like stuff like that happens all the time, all over the world. People just die.
Yeah, well, that's true. People just die.
Hit in the chest.
Yeah, but
look it up. Look it up now. You can look up professional soccer players dropping dead, high school sport players dropping dead. Like people just drop dead.
Now it has gone up since the shot, though.
Well,
yeah, everybody's been talking about that for a while with the myocarditis, and so you definitely see an intake of that. And I saw a clip online. I don't know how legit it was, so I didn't want to include it in our podcast, but I will bring it up that apparently he had talked about how he had the two shots in the booster, so he'd had three altogether. Now, again, I know if people play with stuff, so I didn't have a chance to seek the source out on that one, so I didn't want to include it. But I will say that there's definitely a lot of speculation out there. But regardless of that, I think as believers and as sports fans and an athlete, I think that the biggest thing we want to do is just, remember him and his family in our prayers. We want to see him come back. And I think that also, you hear a lot of people say, I will pray. But I actually wonder how many people actually have been praying for Hamlin. I mean, I know I have.
The guy on ESPN that prayed on
online. Yeah.
So people do it.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, a lot of people say stuff like, I'll pray for that, or you're in our prayers, but do they really pray? Or is that just a slogan that they're using to make themselves feel good? I know that when I say that, I really intentionally, about 10 years ago, I said, I will not say that I'm going to pray for something or somebody unless I actually do it. And often I will say, let's just stop and pray right now.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Like, if for whatever reason, if I'm like, say driving or something, or I give somebody food, or somebody come up to me and I realize that this person really needs prayer right now, or whatever. If I say I'll pray for you and walk away, the chances of me praying go down a lot. Instead of praying right there, or not even telling them that, I find if I just don't say anything and I walk away, it's like my conscious, like a thought, like I need to pray for this. Okay, I'll pray, and I stop and pray.
So you don't have a prayer journal then? I would take it.
No,
I would highly encourage you.
I've done prayer journals.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really find that I have one that I write in, and I actually, when God answers a prayer, I'll put it there, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's answered in a way we don't want it to be. It could be that they pass and go away, but that's not an answered prayer. So, but all right. Well, on to number 2. So number 2, we got Tulane, the Cotton Bowl. Did you see that?
I saw probably what you're probably going to bring up.
What do you think I'm going to bring up?
I thought you were going to bring up the targeting.
No, I actually was bringing up the fact that, they were not a well-ranked team, and they've had this incredible season. They came from out of nowhere, kind of, have an incredible season, 12-2, and concluded their magical 2022-23 with the win at the Cotton Bowl, which was the 87th.
Who'd they play this year?
Well, they played a good team. Who did they play?
Well, I know who they ended up playing, but...
Yeah, but they played Alabama, right? Am I thinking right? No, USC. Sorry, yeah, they played USC. I said Alabama.
Last play, right?
Yeah.
I thought that's the play you were going to talk about.
No. I wanted to bring it up just because I thought I caught bits and pieces of the game while I was working out, but at the end of the gym time, at the gym, I could tell everybody was watching the game, obviously because of the last minute play, but also just because it was kind of a cool feel-good story. Beginning of the year, I always like good feel-good stories. It's good to root for teams that aren't necessarily, well, who thinks of Tulane? I mean, we talk about the big ones, not teams like that.
Well, Tulane is not a powerhouse by any means.
Yeah.
On anything, maybe academics. But they always, like every 5 to 10 years, they have a sports story. I mean, I remember when it was basketball, there was like a year or two where they were really good at basketball. And that might have been like 2004, 5, and 6. And then that went away. And then they were good at baseball for a little bit. And then that went away. And now,
again, it's kind of this smaller, not as well known school does well. The Cotton Bowl is a celebrated event, so I thought it was just a cool story, and I enjoyed watching bits and pieces of the game. I was watching that. That's the hard part of me when a lot of these games I go to the gym, and I'll have them up on multiple screens, so I'll be watching that one all at the same kind of time. I tend to do that. I do that also on Sundays, when they have good games on.
I'll get Red Zone, YouTube TV Red Zone.
Well, I do. Well, I will put up my iPad. I'll have the TV on here, and then sometimes if there's a third game going on, I'll grab the machine next to me if nobody's on it and put it on the TV there so I can watch all three while I'm working out, man. So
yeah, Tulane. That's good. That's cool.
Cool story.
I really like USC. So.
Yeah, I just thought, again, a no-name, I shouldn't say no-name, but a smaller school, not as well-known, wins Cotton Bowl. I thought it was a really good feel-good story. A lot of people took notice. I saw a lot of people on social media making comments about it. I thought it was worthy to bring up since it just happened.
Last one. Green Wave? Wait, I need to know what Green Wave is.
I don't know. What is it?
What is a Green Wave? Where did that come from? I have no idea. I have to know that.
Well, you look it up. While you do that, I'll start bringing in.
You bring it up.
while you do that, I'll bring up the number 3 here, which I find very interesting too, because right at the end of the year, beginning of the year, we get Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas both get released. Both, neither one of them are superstar. They both came from the Royals. They both won a championship with the Royals, but they both kind of overachieved that year. And not that they were bad players, but those were career years. I mean, Moustakas hit, I think, 38 or 40 home runs for a couple of years in a row. Eric Hosmer got up in the higher 20s. But if you really look at their career, that wasn't who they were. And then, I look at Hosmer, and Hosmer actually had a normal Hosmer year with the Padres. They trade him because obviously they wanted to. They're trying to get every superstar there is, and Hosmer wasn't that guy. He's not a superstar. He's an above average player.
He's a good complement to a superstar.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know what? And if you already had other players who were really good on your team, he'd be a great first baseman. He's good defensively. He normally hits into 20 home runs. Last year was a little bit down season, but he got hurt at the second half when he got traded to the Red Sox. He was with the Padres on pace. I think he had 14 home runs in the first half with the Padres, if I remember right. And he was batting in his he's a 270 hitter. He normally bats about 270. Has low 20s, 20, 21, 19 home runs right in that ballpark year over year. And so I just thought that was interesting. The other one's Moustakas. Again, he actually had a worse year for the Reds, but he's also moved positions. He did whatever. He kind of dealt with some injuries. The reason I'm bringing them up is both are Royal players, but both of those guys are guys that if a team picks up, number one, the team that released them, because they both were put on, they were both released.
Yeah.
The Padres are on the hook for the next 3 years for Hosmer's salary. The rumor is of this morning. I haven't seen in the last few hours, but the Cubs were close to closing in on him. But I mean, the Cubs would only have to pay him a little over $100,000 to have this player for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm down on Moustakas just looking at his numbers the last 3 years.
Yeah, since he's been with the Reds. Yeah. Part of that, though, is they moved him. He was a third baseman, and they moved him to second base because they already had a young third baseman. And, Moustakas, to me, at this point in his career, is a guy that you have come off your bench. He's that veteran presence. He has a little bit of pop, and a DH. And with the National League having a DH, he would be great for a National League team that needs a DH with a little bit of veteran. I think he needs a...
But he's not hitting homers anymore.
Yeah, but he was playing for the Reds.
So exactly. Listen, 2022 he had 250 at bats. He had 7 homers.
Yeah.
That's not good.
I know. I'm not just. Hey, look, I'm not saying Moustakas is a game changer, but is this a guy that for $100,000 you might see if he can be a decent DH and be a good backup?
How are you going to pay him $100,000?
Because the Reds are on the hook for him. He got released, and they still have to pay
they're
salary.
going to pay him minimum, which is like 600 something.
Whatever $600,000, the minimum. It's the league minimum. So
yeah, I'm just telling you.
He's
based on his last 3 years, I would rather have someone
young and up and coming.
Young and come up. You can get a guy that's 24 to give you 300 bats and hit 200.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Well, the Cardinals have that
He'll probably
too.
be faster than Mike. He'll probably be a lot of things.
Are you talking about my Cardinals, Paul DeYoung?
Oh gosh, don't get me started on that guy. I almost pulled my hair out when they signed that guy for that much money after watching him do well for 3 months.
Yeah, well, he had one good year. He had his first year. He came out. He did well. They signed him to a big contract. The thing that's interesting about that is there's been a lot of rumors. Not to go there too far because that could be another episode for us, but there's been a lot of rumors around the Cardinals and the Red Sox making a trade. The trade would be DeYoung, Burleson, and one of our young pitchers for Chris Sale. The reason why, Red Sox salary dumping, want to get Sale off the books because they're obviously not going to compete this year. They're in a rebuild mode, and they'd rather get a couple prospects out of it and see if they can get a bounce back on DeYoung. They need a shortstop. DeYoung is an adequate shortstop. He's not bad. He's not a huge liability defensively. Offensively, if he figures it out, they say that he's taking big steps this offseason. We'll see.
What else were they going to say?
Well, what?
He stinks this offseason. Yeah.
No, but the difference is
Of course you're going to say that.
well, the difference apparently from the Cardinals' perspective, I can tell you, is that JMO the other day in an interview said that for the first time in the last 3 years, he actually showed up to the facility in the offseason, has been working with all their hitting instructors, and he has not done that in the past years when they've asked him to. So,
I don't know if that smells of desperation, not commitment.
well, he is desperate.
If he hasn't done it for 3-4 years.
And then what's weird is that he did it in the minors. He goes down to minors and he hits 20 home runs in a few months in the minors, comes back up here, he has a couple good weeks, and then he goes back into his whatever. So, I'm not a high nor low on DeYoung. I wish him well. He's a young guy. I like him for a lot of things. I think that for the Cardinals though, we obviously have our shortstop and second baseman. At this point, I don't see where he fits at this point for our team. And if maybe a change of scenery, going up to the Red Sox is part of a trade. If he bounces back for them, that's great. If not, he's only signed for 1 year. They let him go, and they don't have to pay Chris Sale $17 million plus another $15 million. So they free themselves of about $35 million off their books. For the Cardinals, what do? They get a guy who's a bulldog who last year had a couple freak accidents, which makes him a little cheaper right now. He had the famous biking accident where he fell down and hurt his finger, and then he got hit by a line drive on the other hand. So he kind of had some issues there, but he bounced back and still pitched by the end of the season and seemed to be fairly well. So he's, I think, not a huge risk. His contract's not huge, 17, and then a 15 guaranteed. Plus, if he's in the top 5 Cy Young voting in the next 2 years, he has a third-year option for 17. So
what makes you think that Boston's rebuilding?
Well, they lost Xander, and
they're probably going to lose him anyways.
well, they lost Xander. They let go of Evaldi, their pitcher who went to the Rangers, and Devers has mentioned that he is not interested in
1 year.
Well, yeah, he signed a $7 million 1 year deal, right?
Yeah.
But he was already that's because he was under their control.
Oh yeah. But that's what I'm saying.
But
they lost Evaldi.
But he's already said that he's most likely going to leave the Red Sox. Yeah, they've talked to him about a long-term contract, and he has not been interested because all their superstars just left with Bogarts.
Corey Kluber.
What's that?
Is Corey Kluber not good?
Corey Kluber?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is he?
Well, I
He
don't
had
know.
an off year last year.
Well, he says that he's signing with them.
Yeah, I mean, again, Corey Kluber was off last year. He was, he's 38 years old. He's had 2 years. Last year, he didn't pitch so well with Tampa, if I remember right. And in the year before, he was okay, but he's definitely not the superstar. He's 30. I mean, you're getting an older player who's past his prime. He's probably a number 3 pitcher.
Masataka Yoshida.
Yep, they did sign him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they're. Yeah, but when you put that team up against like the Yankees or some of the other powerhouses in their division, even the Orioles have been, they started to rebuild. Now they're up and coming. They've got a lot of young players. So the Red Sox just don't look like they're going to compete this year. I don't think they're going to dumpster dive. They're still the Red Sox. They still got some talent on that team. But Chris Sale has 2 years left, and he's one of the higher paid players. Is this a team that's going to compete the next 2 years, or is this a team that's probably about 3 years out? A lot of people think it's about 3 years out. At that time, Sale's gone. They're not going to probably re-sign him at 30. What, he'll be 38, I think, at the time. I think he's 35 right now. So,
well, if they think it's going to be less than 3 years, they'll keep Sale.
Yeah.
If they don't, which would be a good indicator for people.
It also depends what they get back. I mean, for Sale, that goes back to what the Cardinals offer. Because we could also make the case that maybe they go with somebody like Libidor, who's ready to come up this year, kind of touched toes a little bit last year, and they think that maybe he's still a touted left-handed talent. The Cardinals might be one to get rid of him because he didn't quite perform the way they hoped he would last year. I think he pitched 6 games, a couple good ones, a couple bad ones, a couple mediocre ones. He just wasn't the ace that he was touted to be quite yet, but it was his first experience in the majors, and so again, maybe that's a trade where they look at him still being high value. They get Burleson. Burleson hit 30-something home runs in the minors. He did all right in his call up for us. It looks like he's ready. We just don't really have a spot for him. We got 8 outfielders, and not one of them's had more than 1 good year. That's the Cardinals' issue. They're going to face this year is the Cardinals have 2 issues this year. And that is simply pitching, starting pitching. They lack an ace. I mean, they'll win games with what they got. but they go to the playoffs. The guy who led the playoffs last year just signed a 2-year deal with the Mets, and they had all the other players. So basically, the guys who couldn't take you on game one are what you're going to have to go with. Out of that, the way I look at it is Montgomery is probably a really legit number 2 pitcher. And Michaelis is a solid 3 guy. He kind of reminds me of that Lance Lynn when he was with the Cardinals. Yeah, occasionally rise to the top, but you've seen over the years Lance Lynn is not a number 1. He's not a number 1 with the White Sox. He kind of filled that for like a half season for the Rangers, but really even in his time with the Rangers, he never really. He's a solid complimentary guy. You don't build your pitching staff around, but he's solid to have. He's going to give you innings. He's going to win you some games. Michaelis is that guy. Waino's going to be Waino. Great number 4 guy. I look at the Cardinals, they lack an ace. Who is that shutdown guy that go into the playoffs, takes game 1 and sets the tone? You know, back in the days, it was Chris Carpenter and Waino. Obviously, now the Waino is 41 years old. He's not that guy. And since Carpenter, and actually Waino, even though he's kind of bullheaded, was never quite the same as even Chris Carpenter. I mean, if I look back at 2011 World Series when we won that, go look at game 1, first play, one of the very first plays. I looked at my wife, and I said, we're going to win this World Series. And I said, and everybody will tell you that it'll be Albert, but I said it's going to be Chris Carpenter. He's going to will his way. He wanted to pitch in 3 games, got 3 starts, and he was a game changer. Albert was too, not to discredit Albert in 2011. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it as a fan, and his home run spectacle of 4 home runs down in Texas won us a game there when we lost one up here. But Chris Carpenter went 3 wins, 3 starts. You only got to win 4 to get the World Series.
So you're saying the Cardinals need a number 1?
Well, and then the other problem they've got is their outfield. They've got 5 or 6 outfielders. None of them have had more than 1 solid year. You got.
Can any of them play the infield?
They don't need infielders. They got plenty of infielders.
So why is too many outfielders a problem?
But how many of them are? But which ones are going to step up? None of them have had. So you have.
You pick 5 and then they duke it out.
Well, that's what they're doing right now. But I mean, again, they could all 5 fluke too. I mean, you got O'Neill.
Well, you can't do that. You can't have 5 floating. You need 3 guys that are going to start 95% of the games. Then the 4th guy is going to.
So here's their starting 3 right now. They've already said it. It's going to be O'Neill left. It's going to be Dylan Carlson in center, and it's going to be right field will be Newt. Okay. Now, here's the deal. Newt had a solid season last year, but he's not a superstar. Now, I did see his off-season workouts and videos. Maybe he takes a step forward or at least maintains what he would.
Do people work out in the off-season if they don't post it?
I don't know.
This always drove me insane.
Well, no, it was some kind of company bragging about their technology. They had them all hooked up, but it was.
Look at me, work out. Look at me. Look at me, work out. I just don't get it.
Well, and then you had Carlson. Now, the Cardinals have been high on him, but last year was a huge step down for him. I mean, you look at year 1, did really good. Last year, he was good defensively, but I mean, his offensive numbers were pretty much horrendous. I mean, any outfield, you could step back out tomorrow in the shape that you're in and did what he did in center field. I mean, not defensively. I'm talking offensively. I think he had 3 or 4 homers, batted around 230, 240. I mean, that was not a step forward like from his first year where he hit 20 dingers and batted in the 280 range. I mean, he definitely took a step back. O'Neill hurt most of the year. Again, batted in the low 200s. His power seemed to be zapped, so he didn't have as many dingers. So those are your starting 3.
I don't even think he can wipe his butt anymore.
Well,
seriously,
he's so big.
Yeah,
they say he's working on flexibility stuff, but then you got number 4.
Good.
Number 4 on that team, the 4th outfielder is going to probably be either Yepez or Burleson. Burleson, I like him. He's not known for his defensive prowess, but his bat, 24, 25 years old, his bat and down in AAA, he hit almost 30 dingers down there. Came up late season last year, seemed to add power to us, so I'm good with him. It just doesn't, You're
willing to trade him for a better pitcher.
You got to trade somebody to get somebody. If it were me, I would probably trade one of the other guys we were talking about. But the Cardinals already said that's their starting 3, so then you got to go to either your 4th or 5th guy, right? And the other guy is going to be Yepez. I mean, I don't know how high other teams are going to be on Yepez. I think if you're getting a guy like Chris Sale, Burleson is a decent prospect. He's probably going to be a good DH, an adequate outfielder. You look at a guy like Libidor being a pitcher that could replace Sale, and then you throw in DeYoung, obviously that's more of a throw-in. I mean, he's not what you send around, but they have a need there, and it would help us to get rid of his salary a little bit, especially if we're taking on Chris Sale. We shed $8 million for one season and pick up, 17 for each season for the next couple. So, I think it makes sense. If you look at it on paper, this is one of those trades where it could really work well for both teams. Gives a couple players a good shot at a team like the Red Sox to make it. And
What do you know the rule change for signing free agents as it affects the draft? Or is that the same? I thought they changed that. If you sign a free agent, you lose.
You mean if they're protected? I mean, like if they're one of the designated ones?
No, just it used to be that when you signed a free agent, you compensated that by
That's if it was one of their top free agents and you had to give them comp of the first round.
yeah.
Yeah, they changed that a little bit. It's still around. They also could get, they could accept that was if they declined the minimum, which was the top three in their.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's still around. But it's changed ever so slightly. That was one of the real changes. And this upcoming year, and we'll have to do an episode on. I'm really excited about the shift going away because there's some players that I think are going to do really, really well now that that's gone. But let's move on. So we need to get into Hall of Fame, okay? Because it's that time of year, and this is actually kind of fun. There's 3 guys that really stood out when I looked at the ballot. I thought we would discuss them. They each have positives and negatives, okay? And so. Let me go here. Uh-oh. 1 second here. There we go. First guy is Carlos Beltran. So Carlos Beltran is, to me, this is his first year. You look at his numbers, 1,500 runs, 1,500 RBIs. I mean, 500 doubles, 400 home runs, 300 stolen bases. A lot of people don't talk about Carlos Beltran, but in his early years, he scored a lot of homers, and he was a doubles machine.
Was he part of that cheating thing with Boston?
Not with Boston, with Houston.
Houston, that's right.
That is the downside. You look at him, and when you look at that, you got to say, okay, that's the stink on him. But it's not like he took steroids or something like that, like this is a guy. I mean, that.
Well, did he cheat?
Cheat for what? To get that championship? Do teams try to get an advantage by using cameras or
not
banging
teams
on?
That don't cheat?
No. Yes, he cheated.
Okay. Well then.
So does he? So is the case that did you think he should not be in the Hall of Fame then because of that? Would he just throw his whole career away because this last year in baseball he did that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing about you. Like, oh, he lived 40-something years so well. He still let him out of jail. I know he murdered that guy. I knew he stole from that person.
Okay. So your thought process is maybe
what's the Hall of Fame if not like the most distinguished and honorable players to play the game?
Well, is it honorable? I guess that's the criteria. Is it a distinguished and honorable, or the best players that played the game? Because if you look at best players, his stats say that
distinguishable and honorable.
Okay. So if that's the criteria, then the honorable kicks him out, and that's why a lot of people have kept like Mark McGwire and some, Barry Bonds and several of those guys out. I just look at
Hall of Fame careers.
Yeah, I looked at him as his was part of a team collaboration. So do all those players that were part of that Houston team, since they all cheated on that, even though they had to, they already paid their consequences, they all cannot be on that Hall of Fame now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, I don't like. What's the distinction between like betting and cheating and steroids? Like what? Like why?
Well, I would say that steroids is something that somebody does internally. Obviously, you're making yourself bigger.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cheating in a game, I don't know. That's gone on for a long time, where people have trying to get advantage in a way.
Let's get Shoeless Joe Jackson back in the Hall of Fame in baseball.
Yeah, I mean that's
he cheated.
Yeah, again, I mean there's
one time.
Yeah, one time, that is true.
And he even performed better than everybody on the field. So
yeah, I'm not. You know what? I like Carlos Beltran. I thought his numbers were Hall worthy. But that's why I bring him up, because there is that thing of the Houston Astros. Is that the thing that keeps them off the ballot? And there are people who are going to vote that say no. So
people won't even consider that just because they like Carlos, right?
Well,
I like him. He was a good player, so I'll give him a pass.
I don't know if I give him a pass. I'll look at his numbers, even up to that point. Like when I look at like Barry Bonds, my always question is we know when he started steroids, how was he before then? And that's kind of how I usually kind of dictate, and how was it afterwards. Whereas numbers prior to that, at that point, was he ready for the Hall of Fame, or was he not worthy at that point? But to me, that's just my mindset of how I do it. So when I look at Beltran, I mean, that was his last year he played. He was actually going to get ready to be a manager after that. He wound up not taking a position because of it all. I get either way. I mean, he cheated, and that's part of maybe that's part of the consequence. Just like Pete Rose, even though now we allow betting in baseball, he bet it when it wasn't allowed, and so he's not in the Hall of Fame.
You still can't bet if you're a player or coach.
So
field personnel.
Well, that's true. So let's get into the second player that I want to talk about.
Hopefully he didn't cheat.
No, this guy didn't cheat. It's funny because he was, when I was growing up, one of my favorite players, Scott Rowland. Scotty Rowland. The thing about Scott is when you look at his stats, he doesn't dominate in one area. Okay? So to me, when you look at Scott Rowland, this is a player that you can't just look at and go, okay, he deserves to be in a Hall of Fame because of how many homers he hit or how many doubles he hit. But when we look at him, I want to give you a few things here. So
here, I got a good point after you talk.
Go ahead, go ahead, make your point.
Okay, Scott Rowland, we're debating his talent level, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's Hall of Fame quality, maybe it's not. Okay. Let's just say he cheated one year. Would we even be having this discussion since his length of play, his quality of play is kind of borderline? If you attach cheater, you immediately dismiss, correct?
I don't know. I think his stats are really good. I think he doesn't dominate one area. You got to look at the whole picture, and that's why I say with him, so let's look at here. He won 8 Gold Gloves, which is the 4th most by any third baseman. So Brooks Robinson, Mike Schilt, and Nolan Arenado are the only people who've won more. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he recorded a 21.2 defensive WAR in his big league tenure, 114 defensive runs saved from 2003. So, and the reason why is because they didn't look at it prior to that. So, he was a strong hitter. For a hot corner, mm-hmm. Only Schmidt, Matthews, and Chipper Jones and George Brett were better. Okay, on the OPS. All right. So, and from 1997 through 2004, he finished 4th in the NL MVP voting. So, mm-hmm. He averaged 28 homers, 102 RBIs per season, with a collective 287 average. Okay, and a 133 OPS. Well, his production tailed off in his 30s. Hold on here. So, I mean, I look at this guy. So, he had 2,000 hits, 300 homers, and 500 doubles. Okay, all right. And there's only like 14 players who've done that. Okay, so, and most of them are in the Hall of Fame except for Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, Robinson Cano, and Andre Beltre.
Cano.
All right, get on to me about that.
Those are all people that will be in the Hall of Fame, though.
And there's a few that were linked who did that, but were linked to Peds, which is Barry Bonds.
Cheated?
Yeah, oh. Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Rafael Primero, and Manny Ramirez.
You know what would be awesome?
What's that?
I think it would end the debate about like cheating, steroids. If we had a Hall of Shame. You can only get in there if you have super good stats, but you have something against you.
I always said that they should put a area in the Hall of Fame because it's acknowledging the sport, and they should put stuff like during the PED era, anybody who did things, they should put on that area and be acknowledged as a time where this was going on in baseball. Because one of the things that always bothered me about like the steroids thing after reading the Mitchell report was the fact that so you had two classes of players who took the steroids. You had the young players trying to get an advantage, and most of those guys were like borderline, not really good enough to quite make the pros, and they were just trying to get that little edge, okay? And even
by cheating.
Yep, and almost all those players never made it, okay? I mean, they came up 1 or 2 years, and they never made it. They were just trying to get advantage. The other part, okay, were the other players who Jose Canseco went around and introduced. So a minus Barry Bonds, okay, every other major player that we talk about should be in the Hall of Fame or whatever. Every one of those was already a good player, and they saw what Jose Canseco did, and they wanted his numbers. They wanted to go from 40 homers to 50 homers. They wanted to go from 20 stolen bases to 30 stolen bases because he could do the 30-30 and a 40-40. And so he would go around, and when you watch a Mitchell report, it's like he goes to this place, he introduces this guy. He goes to this place, he introduces that guy. He goes to this place, he introduces that guy. And he keeps introducing him to his dealer. And then when he can't get a job because he's gone to every team in baseball and ruined his name with them pretty much because he was like with almost literally about every team. I think it was like 26 teams that he played for. It was crazy, maybe 18, something like that. It was a lot of teams. Then he can't get a job, and so he writes a book exposing how he went around to every one of these players and got them all hooked on steroids. I mean, it was just kind of crazy to me, and then it becomes a big deal. That was always part of my problem with that but it's his part. But going back, I don't want to get too. We should do an episode on steroids sometime because I know your dad's passionate about that too. Because I've heard his things. I'd love to hear, maybe have him on.
He's had a few things to say on the subject.
But going back to Scotty, because he did not do steroids and he played during that time.
Yeah.
And his numbers, he was a 5.8 WAR per season from 1997 to 2004.
Yeah, and people liked him. He was honorable. So this is my point. It's like, why don't we reserve spots in the Hall of Fame for people like this?
Well, that's what I said. That's why I'm bringing it up. He's been on the ballot for a few times. He moved up. I think he's been on. Let's see here. He's been on a few times, and
people walk into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, they look at the numbers, but there is a presence when you walk and you're standing in front of a plaque and you read about his heroics or the type of person he is. Like I think people look at that more than he had 316 home runs.
Yeah, he started out with 10% vote in 2018, and he was just 47 votes shy last year. So I mean, again, it seems like writers are just paying attention. I think the thing that is everybody looked at him, and again, he wasn't a guy that had one stat that stood out, like I hit 700 home runs like Albert, or I hit 500 this. But you look at his overall stats for a third baseman, he's top 10 easily in all of baseball.
Yeah,
in the all time.
You don't have to convince me.
He was good defensively.
Yeah.
He had a bat. He could hit. He got on base. He did everything that you want, but he just didn't dominate one stat area. You just, again, it's going to. Right. I think the same argument's going to happen when Yachty goes into the Hall of Fame. He should be a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. But if you look at Yachty,
I think he will be.
Well, but what he's most known for, there's not a stat for.
Right.
Which is framing pitchers and managing the game. What stat helps you manage a game and frame pitchers? But you talk to pitcher after pitcher. There's a reason why every midseason the Cardinals go out and find two pitchers who weren't all that great, and then they would come to the Cardinals and have a fantastic second half of the season, a.k.a. even his last year.
Yeah. I think the stat is ERA with Yachty and ERA without Yachty. I would imagine every pitcher close to has a better ERA with Yachty as opposed to against.
Absolutely. I would, and I think there's a lot of other things, the little technical things. Obviously, we knew that he could throw out, anybody that tried to steal a base. He had one of the quickest arms, kept the bases from being stolen on him. So, all right. So
pick me off.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was literally my last play in the big leagues. He picked me off.
Oh, that's funny.
I was a pinch hitter, walked on 4 pitches. He went to block the ball. He scooped it cleanly and just threw it down first.
That's awesome.
I was out. See ya.
All right. Well, our third candidate, Andrew Jones. He's another guy. First, he's in his 6th year. All right. And again, Andrew Jones, I most known him for playing for the Braves. He did play for the Yankees for a short period of time. But again, I mean, this is a guy. Let me give you a few of his stats here. So, um, Gold Gloves. All right,
That was my guy, Andrew Jones.
10 Gold Gloves. So, 10 Gold Gloves. There's only 4 outfielders to win exactly 10 Gold Gloves. King Griffey Jr. Okay, Ichiro. All right, we're talking about
Ichiro.
yeah, yeah. All right. So that alone to me already puts him. I mean, there's not too many outfielders that have 10 Gold Gloves. That tells you how he was. He accumulated a 24.4 defensive WAR in his career. Wow.
He's good.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer.
Well, I mean, he hasn't made it yet, so that's why we're talking about it. He hit he had 400 homers, so he had power. His power tailed off at the end of his career. So, which is, I think, one of the things that was bad. I think sometimes that happens where a player hits so well for like a 10-year period, and then people remember Albert right now because of his last half season for the Cardinals. But if he had not had that, it would be like he had 10 great years and 11 terrible years, and people would kind of remember that 11 terrible years. Most of baseball, St. Louis would remember the 10 great years.
Or well, he played for Atlanta for 11 years.
Yeah, that's what I said. 10 of those, he was Gold Glover and awesome.
Yeah, and the year he went to L.A. for that 1 year, that's when everything
kind of starts falling apart.
Dropped off.
Yeah, so again, I
still hitting 17, 19.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't, again,
not a lot of at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, that's when he started dealing with some injuries, and you see that a lot with outfielders, right? I mean, an outfielder comes up to 24, 25. If they have a career where they play 10 years in the outfield in the major league level, they get to be 34, 35. It seems like inevitably, usually what I notice is they get some kind of leg injury. Lower leg, it'll be Achilles, it'll be a foot. And after that, their power goes. They're not as fast in the outfield, so they move from center or being this elite defensive man to being an adequate defensive man. And then their power goes. You look at King Griffey Jr. as a classic example with the Reds. Great first few seasons with the Reds, and then all of a sudden, when he had that leg injury, comes back, and his power. It wasn't like he was not hitting homers. He was just half of what he was hitting. In the high, he went from hitting in the high 30s. To all of a sudden hitting low 20s, So it was easily 14 to 20 home runs a season less than what he was hitting prior. So, and then all of a sudden they're not the Gold Glover anymore. They're still covering okay, but those leg injuries. Matt Holliday for the Cardinals, another one, got the leg injury, never quite got his power back. I mean, it wasn't terrible. After that, he played a year for the Yankees where he was okay, but again, just never. Even his last season with the Cardinals, never quite the same guy with that leg injury.
Well, I got him in Hall of Fame.
There you go. Well, I'm a fan of Andrew Jones. So those are 3 players that definitely there's some debate on. One, obviously, with the cheating scandal, different type of scandal, and then you got the other 2 where neither one have a dominant stat. I guess you could kind of say the Gold Glove, 10 Gold Gloves. You could say the Gold Gloves for both of them are probably their dominant stat, but you look at the overall picture, and they really just were. There probably wasn't a better third baseman, in baseball during Scott Rowland's tenure, except for Andre Beltre, kind of came along at one point, and then you also have But see, A-Rod, I don't count him. Again, by that point, he was on steroids. He went from the shortstop. When he went down to Texas, he gets introduced to steroids, and that's when the steroids, and he moves over. So that's where I look at his stats prior, and I go, okay, he was a great player prior, and this is who he was, a shortstop. But after that,
secret?
Yeah,
I think that A-Rod's been taking steroids since he was in high school.
Could be.
Yeah. Where did he grow up, in Miami?
Yeah, well, but according to I'm just giving you the Mitchell report. That's what I read, and they did a deep interview with all that.
Did you see the Netflix documentary they did? It was like it was a documentary type thing, and somebody pretended to be A-Rod during the show, and they lived his life as if he was going and getting these things, and A-Rod's not
interesting
a good dude at all. At all.
There you go. All right.
Anyways,
so now we got the new year. So Scotty, from you, I want you to tell us from your hot corner 3 things the Dodgers need to do for their New Year's resolution. So, what are 3 things?
Number 1, make their park more kid-friendly.
Okay.
Number 2, cement a closer for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that'd be a great move for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And number 3, what we discussed this earlier. What did I say about number 3? I said
We kind of talked about Bauer a little bit.
Oh
'Cause,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
he came.
Bauer.
You know, he had the whole scandal with
Yep,
the woman,
yep.
and then he fought MLB for the suspension. He won.
Right.
So now he's eligible, and I think the Dodgers were hoping that. I'd read a lot of things behind the scenes. That's why they weren't actively going after like Verlander or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
That they had thought that he was going to be able to win because he had won his lawsuit, so
Right.
the criminal suit. So
And I guess you know, I have a hard stance on the Hall of Fame, obviously, but for cheating and doing this is off the field stuff, right? This is personal life stuff. No criminal charges.
right. I mean, you're either
Settled civil.
Yeah, to me, you got to go with the American way, which is you're innocent unless proven guilty. He was not proven guilty.
Right.
Okay. We're in a day and age right now where as soon as somebody says something,
You're labeled that.
You're labeled that.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that, especially.
And trust me, I don't like Bauer. I don't like him.
Yeah.
But to say he can't play baseball because of
an accusation.
an accusation that's been proven either not true or a fraction of what actually happened.
Yeah.
Essentially everything.
Yep.
And you're going to ruin that guy's life because of that?
Well, I'm in agreement on that.
Obviously not ruin his life. The guy has money. He has, like, I'm not saying.
Yeah,
his life
no,
is
no,
good.
but his, I mean, he has money and all that, but his big thing is his career. I mean, men identify with their career, and with Bauer, my hope is really this. If I had to say something about this, is I hope this is a wake up for Bauer personally. Okay, things like this can really make somebody review their spiritual life a little bit and their life decisions. He's obviously been a guy who's been controversial since high school. He's always kind of been a prima donna, always been very vocal about things. Whether you like, some people really like that because he was an alpha male to some degree. But on the other hand, I hope that this has humbled him in a way that maybe he'll be a better person out of it. And I also hope this is a caution sign to young MLB players coming up that they need to pay attention to the people that they have around them or who they date. In this day and age, you need to pay attention. The fangirls that are all around all these different sports players, they want one thing, okay? They want you to get them pregnant so they can get the money, okay? And you need to be aware of that. And so they're using a weakness in most males and exposing it. And most males who are on the road are a lot of times lonely, right? Especially if they don't got family. And so they utilize their looks and their beauty and attractiveness to offer companionship. The problem is it leaves you more empty than ever before and often more broke. So, and so, you know, my cautionary tale to young players is, you know, you look at good role models, and the role models, you know, I look at a guy right now. I'm going to use a guy even out of baseball who I've really been studying up a little bit on, Jonathan Isaacs from the Orlando Magic. Love hearing his testimony recently. Love hearing how him and his wife met, serving together. They met serving together. Okay, he was serving in I think it was a food kitchen or something with this church that he had started going to, and that's how he met his wife. What a great story. Always tell the young men at the young men at the gym, that I never have met a successful marriage that started out with, we met at a bar. I said, you go around this gym and you ask all the successful men in this gym who have great marriages and families, and find me one that starts out with the simple, we met at a bar. And I said, I would venture to say that you are very unlikely to find one of those. But if you find out that if they say like, we met doing this together, okay, serving at church, working out, you know, hiking in a park, you know, things that people tend to do that are fun and enjoy doing. Okay, we were hanging out with friends, going on a float trip. Things that are communal to some degree, tend to draw people together, and those bonds are strong. You meet people finding things that you enjoy doing together, and then you can grow doing those together. So yeah, so that's my hope out of the Bauer situation. Is I hope that after this is done, that him personally comes out of this. I hope that a year from now, when we're doing this podcast and we're talking about Trevor Bauer, we're talking about how a changed man he is, how much more mature man he is, and how he's become a better leader on the Dodgers pitching staff. Maybe we'll get some insight from Kershaw somewhere along the line. I'd love to hear his insight after some time with him. The other things. So we'll move on from that. So that's the Dodgers New Year's resolution. So, all right, you're
buzzing.
Everybody's buzzing you, man. You're a popular man. All right, so for me, I want to talk about the New Year's resolution, but more from a spiritual end of view. So this year, I think there's 3 New Year's resolutions that we as believers should make. And the first one is pretty simple. And
Are you saying that Christians have to make resolutions?
I don't think they have to make them, but I think there's 10 cents a stake, and a New Year is a good time to do that, right? Just like you can always lose weight, but at the beginning of the year, sometimes it's because it's a fresh start, New Year, people decide to start doing something, make a change.
I follow the Hebrew calendar.
Yeah.
When does their New Year start?
There you go. Or the Chinese calendar.
Yeah, one of those two.
The New Year comes up in a few more weeks. All right. So, but number one, I think this is an important one. I think that, especially as husbands, and I think you'll agree with this, is that we need to pray and fast for our families, our community, and our country. Right now, when I look around the world, and I look around especially in our community and country, the one thing that makes me want to do more is pray. And that's because I know that we can only do so much change, but God can change hearts. He can change minds. He controls much more than we'll ever be able to control. And so I would say for number one, that is what I think we should do is be men of prayer. Number two is personal growth. That we can all commit it. At the beginning of the year is a great time to start a new devotional. My daughter started one the other day. Great time to start a devotional. If you're not being discipled, it's a good time to get discipled and to disciple. I don't know about what you do, Scott, but I know I have a couple guys I meet with a few times a week. Some each week, some once a month or whatnot. But we go through and we're discipling them, and then I try to meet with some guys who hopefully will get on this podcast eventually that are a little bit older than me, that help mentor and help me become a better husband and all. But I think that's something we can all strive to. And then number three is encourage family growth, right? So as husbands, we want to see our kids be successful. As I was just saying earlier, my daughter had gotten a new devotional last night, but I think that should be the norm. I don't think when I talk to a lot of young men, especially young dads, who come to me and they start talking about their kids and kids' problems, and they'll come to me because they know I got 6. They'll be like, how do you handle all that? And I tell them, well, the first thing is I married way over my head. Okay, so no doubt about it. My wife, she is the center in a lot of ways of what goes on in the family, and I know your wife is probably the same way. Mm-hmm. A lot of things happen with that core. But number two, and really it should be number one, but it's easy. I like to brag about my wife, but I think that's a godly thing. But number one is God, right? I mean, when God is present in your kids' lives and when you encourage them in spiritual growth, and that's the number one priority, you'll see godly characteristics often coming out of your kids. And when you don't, you'll be prayerful about it, and you'll look for ways to encourage those actions to change. And you go to the community of faith to find that, right? I mean, that's why Jewish centers of faith, evangelical centers of faith, throughout history, people go to their community of faith to get answers, on different things. We had me and Amy just Monday. We're having lunch with a couple from our church, and both of their kids. They got one that just got married, one that's in college, and they were telling us how they'd gone to a couple people in our church to ask some questions about their kids when they were in high school. And it was just so refreshing to find out that they weren't alone in their struggles, okay? And they could work through them together. And so a couple other couples in the church and them got together, started praying and working together to find better solutions for how they could see fruit from their kids that was much more godly. So I think, at the beginning of the year, great time to start those things and to look forward to instilling those kind of values in your personal life by prayer and your devotional and discipleship life. And then lastly, seeing your kids bear their own fruit in your wife.
Yep.
So,
those are all good.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right. Well, we're going to go into the bonus round. Bonus round today, we are still talking about our favorite guy, Correa.
Carlos?
Yes. And there's so much going on with that. So
I haven't heard anything about him in a while.
Really?
Really?
Okay. So let me catch you up on what's going on with him. He is not signed yet with the Mets. They found the health problem. They're saying they're working towards a solution. Rumor mill has it. Now I can just give you the rumor mill. This is completely speculation.
Okay.
Speculation is that his twin brother might have done his physical. And so that MLB is now investigating his twin brother.
Are you saying Carlos is a double cheater, potentially?
Could be. I don't know. I'm just saying that is a rumor that I heard last night. I was reading online. Again, I don't like to give rumor too much fire, but I will just say that there's...
Does he have a twin brother?
He does have a twin brother.
It's kind of like him.
Yep.
Just like him.
Yeah, not as athletic apparently, and can't play baseball like him, but he has a brother that looks just like him. He has a twin brother, and I've heard. Now this is just rumor. I don't like to, but the deal apparently is he got injured when he was 19, had a leg injury, and that there's a lot of questions on how this operation was done, and so. Both teams, the Giants prior and now the Mets, were signing this guy for 12, 13 years, $300 million investment. And when you got a leg issue that may pop up, in 3 to 4 or 5 years, you don't want a guy who's not going to be playing for you for the last half of a 13-year contract and have 6, 7, 8 years on. So they're saying that the Mets and Correa are probably going to work out something, but it'll be something much, much different than what he originally got. So there's a lot of speculation, like a 3 + 2. So maybe it's.
I'd imagine that they're probably. Sorry, I cut you off. 3 + 2. What?
So 3 years.
Yeah.
With the option if he's healthy and plays X amount of games.
Take an option for
that in the first 3 years, that then 2 more kick in, and so it'd be like a 5-year, $150-160 million deal. He'd still make some dough.
Why don't they just pay him what they're going to pay him and make him take insurance out on the body part that's hurt, and just cover his own costs?
I have no idea. Maybe he can do that. I don't know. Maybe he can't because of the way it was. Maybe an injury. Yeah, prior injury. Yeah. So I do not know. I can just tell you, based on speculation. There's a lot of speculation, and that's what that was. That's why I like the premise it as the rumor mill. But there's a lot of speculation out there. But as it is, the guy has now had 2 teams, 2 physicals, both flunked, both dealing with the leg. We can confirm that. And Scott Boras now is just trying to get his client some kind of a decent contract. Mm-hmm. Latest I hear is going to look more like a 5-year deal versus a 13 or 12-year deal. Probably 3 + 2 is what I'm hearing. So we'll
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I wonder how much the Astros knew about that. I mean, probably everything.
I don't know. I mean, he's 19, and maybe it was easier back then, and maybe he didn't even have to. I mean, again, he was a budding star, so he wasn't like. I mean, what you do when you're going to pay somebody for 12 years, $300 million, to somebody who's coming up and playing for $600,000, and if they make it, you pay them more, are 2 separate categories, right? I mean, one's a huge financial investment. The other one is an investment, but not quite on. I mean, $600,000 is a lot to us, but in baseball money, that's a drop in the bucket. Mm-hmm. So I just go back and say, I wish him well. I don't know what the story is there. I hope that the rumor mill is wrong and that goes away. But that was out floating on social media last night. Before
I'm gonna have to pay attention to that.
Yeah,
I didn't know all that. Scotty didn't know.
Well, that's okay. Scotty didn't know. We're going to get into this, doing that a little bit more down the road. So, all right. Well, that being said, we appreciate everybody hanging out with us and spending some time with us today. We're working on this. We're going to keep getting better at it.
Yeah, we'll get better.
Definitely.
We'll get better.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get better.
But it's our first one of the new year. So that being said, you guys have a great rest of your day, and look for us again later this week.